The NBA's defining moment in the birth of a basketball revolution. In 1946, the New York Knicks faced off against the Toronto Huskies and made history. Witness the dawn of the NBA. This is the story of the first NBA game. The year was 1946. Owner of the Boston Garden, Walter Brown, made a realization that would change the world. At the time, the Garden was home to the Boston Bruins, but the arena was left empty whenever the team wasn't playing. That was soon to change. Walter realized that instead of leaving these arenas vacant for multiple days at a time, they needed something new. That would be the sport of basketball. Within weeks, the Basketball Association of America was established, and they were ready to turn an idea into reality. November 1st, 1946. The New York Knicks and the Toronto Huskies meet at the Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto to play what would be considered the first ever NBA game. Just over 7,000 people showed up to witness the start of a new sport, buying tickets that were as cheap as just 75 cents. At 8:30 p.m., it was time for tip-off. The referee threw up the jump ball, and the game was on. The first basket in NBA history was a layup, scored by Ozzie Sketman, which put the Knicks up 2-0. The game was closely contested throughout. Each team was putting up a solid fight. With the end of the game coming, it was tied 66-66 after the Huskies hit a shot to tie the game. Then, the Knicks hit what would be the game-winning shot, making them the first team to win an NBA game. The Knicks were coached by Neil Cohen, meaning he became the first coach to win an NBA game. At the time, nobody thought to record many stats. In fact, it wasn't until the 1973 to 1974 season that rebounds, blocks, and steals were recorded in games. The only available stats for the first ever NBA game are points, fouls, field goals made, and free throw stats, nowhere close to the amount of stats recorded in today's game. The Knicks' leading scorer on the night was Leo Gottlieb, with 14 points on 6 field goals, followed by a familiar name, Ozzie Sketman, who scored 11 points on 4 field goals. Despite the loss, the top 2 leading scorers in the game were both Huskies players, the first being Ed Sadowski, who put up an impressive 18 points on 8 field goals, followed by a solid 16 points from George Nostrand. I'm sure they weren't too happy with their teammates. But back to the bigger picture. The first ever NBA game had come to its conclusion, and the first NBA season was on. The season was closely contested. All teams played on a 60-game schedule, except for the Chicago Stags and the St. Louis Bombers, who finished with the same 38-22 record. A tiebreaker game took place to determine who would be the number 1 seed. The league started off with just 11 teams, with just 6 of those teams making the playoffs to fight for a championship. Games in 1946 looked a lot different than today. Teams played 6v6 games, and there was no three-point line. I think it's safe to say, times have changed.